And here we are, and I've forgotten what the date is today, June 15th or something. Anyway, whatever it is, I'm sure Chris in a minute will remind me what it is. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. And how are you today? Yes, it is Saturday. It is story time. I'm excited. My story is going to be a little bit of a weird story this morning. But anyway, uh, before we begin, first of all, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide, Gregel, who, as always, is standing to my right side. And I'd like to say good morning to Chris, who is in another room in the house. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Rosemary, and it's June 18th, my son's happy birthday.
Oh, that's right. It's June 18th. That was 3 days out. Look at that. June the 18th. Happy birthday to Matthew. And I do believe it's Calvin's birthday, Chris's other son, in 3 or 4 days. So happy birthday to Calvin as well. So happy birthday to them. Anyway, and Chris, you know what I do with my daughter when it's my daughter's birthday? She'll tell you, and she and Reese. The first time she told Reese, she was waiting with bated breath the day before her birthday, so that Reese could see what it is that I always do on my daughter's birthday. So it gets to a certain time, roughly around the time that I was starting with labour pains, and I'll call my daughter up the day before her birthday, and I'll say, oh gosh, got such awful pains in my stomach. I just don't know what to do. And the first time I did it with her years and years ago, I remember thinking, you all right, mummy? What's the matter? Yeah, it's just, oh gosh, I've got such terrible, I think it must be labour pains. And then I go through sort of from time to time, all the way through until the next morning, on and off throughout, and I've still got these pains, or they're getting worse. I can hardly breathe. Oh, and finally, then of course, when it's the time that she was born, and we laugh about it, and she told Reese a few years ago, wait, Mosie's going to call me the day before my birthday, and she's going to say this and this, and of course he laughed and laughed and laughed, and we do it every year. We laugh and laugh because it's my way of reminding her the trials and tribulations that I went through in order to have my baby. Chris, are you doing that with your boys? Are you reminding them of the trials and tribulations of your pregnancy?
Well, I don't typically do that, but this morning, as I was going around in your pool, I recorded a private YouTube for each of them describing what the morning of their birth was like for me.
Oh, oh, I'm glad it wasn't me. But then I'd had 9 months of bed rest. And I say 9 months, I don't mean 8 months, I mean 9 months of bed rest, because I knew immediately within a few days of actually getting caught, I knew that I was pregnant, because my doctor at that time, I'd had several miscarriages before I had Samantha, and my doctor at that time was brilliant and put me on total bed rest for the whole 9 months, which was not pleasant for my husband. I remember the doctor saying to him, he didn't like my husband very much for a variety of reasons, but I remember him saying to my husband, she is not to dust, she is not to lift a vacuum, she is not to lift anything. So if you can't clean, get a cleaner in. She is not to cook. So if you can't cook, learn. If you can't learn, buy a can opener, he said to and I was on 9 month bed rest with nasty injections every week and nurses in and out. And anyway, the whole thing was eventually so worth it, because my darling girl was born, and she was beautiful, and it was awful and painful and tough, but it was worth every second of it. And I know that you mothers out there listening, I know you, Chris, no matter what you go through, when you see them, when you hold them in your arms, boy, oh boy, is it ever worth it, right?
Absolutely. And as we've mentioned, Rosemary, birthdays, there's a few people who are saying it's either their grandma in heaven's birthday or it's their youngest birthday today too. So happy birthday to everyone.
Yes, so happy birthday to everyone who has a birthday today, and of course, our loved ones in the spirit world, don't think that because they're gone, they will forget their birthdays, because one way or another, if you listen carefully, if you pay attention, I'm sure they'll remind you. All right. So this morning has been story time in this house for at least the last hour, if not a little bit longer. I actually was telling Chris a story that she'd never heard before. Now, she's known me for over 20 years, right, Chris?
Correct.
And we've had lots of story times, and we've had lots of times when we've shared stories of one sort or another. And I cannot believe that I never told you this particular story. Anyway.
No, the worst part is you didn't finish the story.
I know it gets better. Anyway, but it's really, as Chris said, you got to tell that story this morning. You've got to tell that story this morning. Well, no, because but what I might do is, because I'm older now, and who cares now anyway, I think we should have a little spate of stories that deals with my escapades of one kind or another when I was younger, but not this morning. I know I'm disappointing you all. I know I'm disappointing you all, but there we are. But I do have another story for you, which is quite interesting. Before, well, actually, all right. So, are we ready, Chris? Do you think everybody's been able to sort of? Shall we wait a few minutes?
No, I think you can go on. The people who didn't log on immediately 7 minutes ago, they'll come on when they want to, or they'll watch this later.
Yes. Okay. All right then. And that is a reminder that you can watch this later. And even if you've enjoyed it this morning, if you want to watch it again, or you want to listen again, or you want to share it with someone else, and guess what? This woman, that woman, that woman who talks to dead people. That's how I'm referred to in many countries around the world. That English woman, that her who talks to dead people. Anyway, we actually. It's so fascinating. Everybody's life is fascinating, I think. Everybody has their own story to tell. And I'm a person who has so many stories to tell. And some of them are spooky, some of them are sort of romantically inclined, sort of. Anyway, and but this one is a story about my experience in another culture. So let's begin then. Once upon a time, as all good stories must begin. Are you sitting comfortably, everybody? Are you sitting, and you wriggle around? Make sure you're comfortable in your chairs. Okay, so then once upon a time, many, many years ago, well, actually not so many years ago, I make it sound like I'm 200 years old, don't I? I was in Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong, and actually different parts of mainland China as well from time to time. Now, in every country has its own culture. Every country has its own beliefs. Every country has its own ideas of spirituality, and every country has its own churches, its own, let's say, spiritual teachers, and in my experience now, for anyone who's listening, anyone in China who's listening, just remember, I'm only giving my experience of the country, which when you sort of listen to other people's experiences, you get a bigger picture. But my experience of China, my experience of my time there, and I had a fantastic time. I was there quite a few times. Was that the Chinese generally are very, very spiritual people, but they have a very different way of looking at it, or many have a very different way of looking at things. Tree sprites are one of the things that Chinese, or the old Chinese anyway, believed in. sprites of all kinds and all different, naughty sprites, devilish sprites, um, uh, little people, I guess, who would get into your life and create havoc and so on. And they had certain rituals that they used to do in order to make sure that they were not affected. I remember a lovely client of mine writing to me and telling me that he had a devil sprite in his mouth, and that devil sprite had been there for years and years, causing all kinds of problems with his mouth and with his teeth. And he was very, very serious about it as he wrote to me about it. And now, those of us in the Western world would be thinking, I need to go to the dentist. This guy was looking for someone to sort of get rid of the devil sprite that was ruining his teeth, his mouth, his gums, and so on and so forth. So interesting, very, very interesting culture. And one of the things that I found out while I was in China on one of my visits was that there are many people who believe that someone like me, it has to be, in order to be real, has to be old. They had a place where all the old, and I'll use the word hags because they were definitely old, generally with no teeth or very few teeth. They would sit along the street, the sidewalk, on the streets, in a row, and people could go down there at sort of any time of the day or night if they wanted their fortune read, or if they wanted to talk to someone in the spirit world, and if they wanted spiritual advice, they would go down to the, I don't suppose they call them old hags, they do have a name for them, if anyone knows what they call them. But they believe, the interesting thing was that you could only do this if you were an ancient person with ancient wisdom. So when I came into Hong Kong, and when I'm sort of, was very fortunate to be allowed to mix with many different societies in Hong Kong, I found that it was generally thought that you had to have sort of long grey hair, no teeth, lots of wrinkles, and sort of this haggish look about you. You had to be an old woman. And so, of course, we're going back a few years now, and I still don't look quite like that, do I? You know, I was much younger than any of the people I met in China had ever experienced, and I confused them tremendously because, you know, they would follow me. I would go into to give different talks, different workshops, different lectures. I had a very busy life when I was in Hong Kong. I had many clients, and I had many clients who needed healing also. So I would go and give healing many times. And so when I came up against, let's say, the older generations, they could not quite figure me out. And then I was invited to a gathering, let's say. Drinks and canapes, and very nice place, and I was invited there because a lot of people wanted to speak to me, and just to ask, you know, just to sort of, it wasn't quite a party, but it was a gathering. I was not on stage, I was not doing my thing, but people kept coming up to me and taking the opportunity to talk to me and to ask me different questions about what I did and so on. And I started to notice, and it was that particular evening that I started to notice that, you know, that people would come up to me, and then I would feel a hand sort of on my back between my shoulder blades, and it was almost as if someone was patting me or stroking me or something, and then they would go away, and then somebody else would come. And I noticed this particular night, I know this had been happening before, but I noticed on this particular night that it was happening often. And so the host and hostess were people I'd gotten to know. They were Chinese, but I'd gotten to know them pretty well. And at one point, sort of more than halfway through the evening, I spoke to the hostess and I said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question? I've noticed that people keep touching my back and they keep doing this on my back, and I'm finding it a little bit disconcerting. Can you tell me what it's about?" And she looked at me and she said, "Well, of course, surely you must know." No, can you explain it to me? And she looked at me very intent and very serious. She said, "Rosemary, they're trying to they're trying to find your wings." I said, "What?" "Well, you know, they're trying to find the place where your wings sprout." I said, "Sorry, really got to explain to me." So she said, "Well, we all know that angels, they have these sort of two little nubs between their shoulder blades." And I'm thinking she's kidding. She's somebody's having me on here. But she was very serious, and she said they're trying to touch your angel wings, because they feel that if they can touch your angel wings, that means that you'll be giving them they'll be perhaps stealing a little bit of magic from you. And I said, "Oh, okay." And I didn't know what to say after that. And then I spoke to some other people, and sure enough, almost everyone in that room, they're looking at me and they're thinking that I must be an angel of some kind. Now, whether they considered the old hag sitting along the street were also angels, and I think probably they did. Every culture has its beliefs. Every culture has its own way of looking at things, and every culture has its own belief systems. Now, I know, let's be clear, that I'm not an angel. I know I'm just simply and wonderfully a human being given the gift of walking on this earth, learning, growing, understanding, having lots of different experiences. I'm here to sort of so that I can grow in a spiritual sense, that my soul can grow. But I'm not going to disparage other people's beliefs. And if they look at me and they see me as an angel, what can I do about it? I can say no all I like. But if people think that someone like myself and others who do the same work, if they think that we are angels of some kind, then I'm not going to poo-poo the idea. I'm just going to allow them their beliefs. It makes me smile because I am the least of an angel that you could ever possibly wish to meet. But I found it very interesting. And during the course of this particular evening, when I was told that they believed that I was an angel, and that no matter how much I denied it, nobody would ever believe that I wasn't, during the course of this evening, I was approached by a man who had wanted to meet me on behalf of his employer. And he explained to me that his employer would like to book an appointment with me, but he was going blind, and so therefore couldn't come to see me. Would I go to see him? I knew nothing of this person. I knew nothing about him. I had no idea how very wealthy this person was until I went to the place he lived, and all the servants and all the rest of it. And there I'm sitting in front of this old man who describes to me his problem. And his problem is that he's got a wood sprite who's been following him, who's bringing him bad luck, who caused his first wife to die. He moved house. He had another wife. He thought that the wood sprite had gone, that he'd gotten rid of him, until one morning he looked out into the garden and there was the wood sprite again. And then his life started going wrong for him again. And the reason that he'd asked me to come was because, as an angel, he thought, I would be able to, first of all, banish the wood sprite, this evil wood sprite who had come into his home. And he was convinced that because of the wood sprite, it was that reason that he was going blind. Now, this man was in his late 80s, early 90s, something like that. But he believed it was the wood sprite who was actually the one who was causing his blindness. Could I do something about it? And I said, well, I can give you healing. I'm not sure I can do anything about the wood sprite, but what I can do is I can do a cleansing for you if you'd like. And I explained what that meant. And I said, look, I'll give you healing. There are no promises, there are no guarantees. I can't guarantee that you'll get your sight back, but I know that healing works in so many different ways, and explained that to him. And so I gave him his healing, and he was grateful. And then off I went, and then he asked me to go back again, and I went about 3 times to see him, to give him healing. And on the last instant, he said to me, Rosemary, I'm feeling a lot better in myself, but my sight isn't back yet. He said, and I think you can do much more to give me my sight back. And he said, what I would like you to do is, he said, I'm going to buy you a house, and I'm going to give you X amount of money, and you can stay in Hong Kong and live in Hong Kong, and you will have servants, and you'll have everybody around you who you need, and all you have to do is to give me my sight back. Well, I didn't take him up on his offer. I couldn't. I'm not an angel. Couldn't promise anything like that. People are so vulnerable. And for all of his money and for all of his wealth, here was a man who was not accepting of his age, and he was not accepting of the limitations of his physical body. He was not accepting of anything, because every time something went wrong for him, he was able to point at the wicked tree sprite and say that was why these things happened. In every culture, people have their beliefs, their belief systems. In every culture, they have their own way of believing. If I were a different person, if I were a different kind of person, that I might have said, oh yeah, I'll have a house and I'll have servants. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll take all that money, good for you. And I would promise, if I were a different person. We have to be very careful, don't we, not to make ourselves vulnerable. A lot of mediums are accused of preying on the weak, preying on the vulnerable. And we have to always be mindful as mediums, as people in this spiritual realm, as people who do this kind of work, whether it's healing, whatever kind of work that it is, we have to be very aware that people in grief, people in pain, they are vulnerable, and we have to make sure that we never, ever take advantage of that vulnerability. I don't know what happened to the old man. It's doubtful, I think, that he ever regained his sight. Who knows? Maybe he did. I never heard from him again because I refused him, and he wasn't a man who you could refuse. He was so used to telling other people what they were going to do. He didn't even ask me if I would like to stay in Hong Kong and I'd like to be there. He presumed that I would say yes to all of it. To the end of his days, I think he believed that the wood sprite was responsible for what was happening to him. He couldn't bear the idea of being blind, of going blind. He just couldn't accept it. There are people all over the world who are blind, deaf, can't speak, having had terrible tragedies. There are burn victims, there are children suffering. All of us have our vulnerabilities. Those of us who don't have any outward scars, we have many scars within us. very often those inner scars go deeper and are more painful than ever the scars, the physical scars that we might bear. But every one of us has our vulnerability. Every single one of us has scars of some kind or another. Every one of us has a story to tell. This old man told me his story, and as fantastic as it seemed to be, and as crazy as it seemed to be, that a wood sprite would follow somebody from house to house to house with the intent of doing evil to that person and creating havoc in that person, seems to us in the Western world really absolutely fantastic and crazy story. I'm not going to say that it didn't happen. I'm not going to say that the old man was wrong. Everybody has their belief system. Our thoughts are very powerful. If we believe in those things, they happen to us. If we buy into something like that, well, then I guess, we take the consequences of that. Our mind is the most powerful thing that we have. In the old man's case, I never went back to see him again. In his case, I'm sure that he died without his full sight. Um, he probably died also thinking that maybe when he got to heaven, he could rule heaven in the same way that he'd ruled here on the earth plane. I don't know. I like to think that he became enlightened, and I like to think that he got his sight back. I'm pretty sure that he would have. Um, but when we talk about belief systems and the belief systems around the world and some weird things that we've never heard of and some incredible belief systems and incredible beliefs that people have, who's to say that they're wrong and we are right? I just thought I'd like to share that story with you. From time to time, I have to admit, if I've got an itch on my back, I wonder if my wings are beginning to grow. It's doubtful, right? It's very doubtful. I've got no little nubs on the back there. I'm having a little feel. I've got a little itch now talking about it. Anyway, everybody believes something. I like to believe that I'm open minded enough to smile when somebody thinks that I'm an angel. I smile and I'm very aware that I am not. The end. Chris, how are we doing?
Good. Judith says the psychology of that creates the reality.
Yes, that's right.
And she also said, my sister spoke to me of wings and wing buds. Oh my, now you are too.
Okay, then. All right.
Annika says, what a lovely story. You are without a doubt an angel of some kind.
Oh no, don't go there, my darling. Thank you, but no. The last thing I want to be is to be held up as some some special being because because I'm not. And Gregor might be chuckling now because I'm definitely not an angel, and he knows that absolutely. Keep going, Chris.
Marlowe says, Rosemary, I think you have a lot of love in your eyes, which immediately gives me an angelic feeling. Even if you
Oh,
are not an angel, you give off a very nice energy.
thank you. I do appreciate that. These eyes have got me into so much trouble over the years. Hmm. There's another story for you, Chris.
Let's see. Judith says, you are honorable, Rosemary. I think we know that by now.
Well, I think it's important. I remember having a bit of a go around with the IRS and with the tax man, and all to do with the woman who stole all of my money a few years ago. And I think it was at the time that they were trying to see if I was involved in any way in any of the shenanigans that were definitely going on in my life, and tax avoidance and all of that sort of thing. And I remember saying I was in a meeting with these two guys and a fantastic woman she was amazing to me. I have to say, if anyone's afraid of the IRS, don't be, because well, they can be awful, but actually, if you're on the right side of them, I think they can be pretty good too. Um, and I remember saying, he was asking me all of these different questions, uh, and what if this and what if that and so on. And I remember saying to him, look, it's not enough when you're in the public eye, when you're doing, when you're public speaking, whatever it is, it's not enough that you should be honest. You have to be seen to be honest. And I think that's very important for those of us who are in the public eye, who do speak, who do, especially those of us who are in this realm. It's not enough to be honest. It's not enough to say, I'm an honest person. You have to be seen in every action that you take. You have to be seen to be honest. You have to be seen by the public to be honest. You have to be seen by those people that you're dealing with. You have to be seen to be honest. And I think that's very important, that, if only our politicians and if only our newspaper people and if only those people who we rely on so much to tell us what the world is, how the world is working and what is happening in the world. If only we could understand, not only to listen to what they say to us, but to see what they do, because actions speak louder than words. It's important to be seen, to be upfront, to be seen, to be honest, I think. Chris?
Well, that reminds me of the James Randi and you conversation. We've got it up on your website with, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name, Rosemary. Who hosted that?
Larry King.
Thank you, Larry King.
How could
I,
you forget that, my lovely Larry King?
I was just trying to remember James Randi's name, but I was telling you this a few days ago that from time to time, people keep revisiting that YouTube, and you have the mean, nasty James Randi lookalikes who are commenting, on trying to tear you down. And then you have the people who perhaps are here on this show or watch this show standing up. And the thought just came to me, James Randi as a skeptic or people like him as skeptics aren't necessarily a bad thing,
No,
because all the people out there who are saying they're like you or similar to you and are not need to be held accountable. It
I agree.
just makes it just so hard when people are kind of nasty to people like you who can do what you say you do.
Well, I believe, look, Chris, I am the most skeptical person you could ever wish to meet. Just because somebody says to me, oh, I do what you do, or I talk to dead people, or I'm a healer, just because people say it does not mean that it's so. And we should all be skeptical. However, there's a difference between being skeptical and being a closed minded bigot. The closed minded bigots, you can tell them apart because they are mean and cruel and spiteful and unnecessarily aggressive. That's who they are. So, why listen to them? But I think that people are entitled to disbelieve, and they're entitled to voice their disbelief. And if they do it respectfully, there's that word again. We keep coming across it, don't we, Chris? Respect,
Yes.
respect. If they do it respectfully and kindly, hey, she may believe all of that, but I don't. And, so you have your beliefs. This is what we've talked about. This is part of the story that I told this morning. Everybody has their own beliefs. Everybody has their own belief systems. And do I believe in tree sprites? Not particularly, no. However, if somebody comes to me and says they believe in tree sprites and they tell me that they've seen them, who am I to say they're wrong? I don't know. Not one of us on this planet is all knowing and all seeing, I have to say. And all of those people who are skeptical in an aggressive and a mean way, they're bigoted. But what they're saying is, you know, I'm more important than you. My beliefs are more important than yours. Well, you know, we can do without them. But I think being skeptical is a very healthy thing to be. And I applaud people who are skeptical. And I know that those of you who are skeptical listening to me saying that would say, oh, yeah, well, that's just a ploy. You know, no, it isn't. I do believe that people should be way more skeptical. So, you know, I had occasion recently, fairly recently, to deal with a family who, and it was not in this country. It was in a country in the Far East, and I had occasion to talk to them, and they had been convinced by some guru or self-professed guru of some sort or another that they had to do certain things, they had to buy certain things, they had to, you know, fill their homes with all these protective things that, and so on and so forth. And they were spending a fortune because they were told this is what will keep the evil away, this is what will keep you protected, and so on. I mean, come on, everybody. You know, all you need to keep evil away is prayers, belief in the light, belief in goodness. If you want to, if you feel that there's negative energy in your house, then you can do a cleansing, as the Native Americans used to do with sage, or you can simply, as I do, say my prayers and ask for good things to come, and trust in God and trust in the light. You don't need to be buying anything from anybody. Don't buy something just because somebody says, "Oh, this will bring you, you know, good luck," or "This will keep the evil away," and all of the rest of it. You don't buy into it. Be skeptical. And that's where skepticism is a healthy thing. It stops us from, you know, buying into stuff that is really not necessary. Chris, keep going.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to your list of being respectful and open-minded is being curious. Because when you can sit across from the table and wonder why and ask questions why the person has that belief, you can grow as well.
I think so. And look, anyone, anyone on this planet who believes that there's nothing, I'm going to suggest open your eyes. You know, the sun comes up every morning. I know we can say why it does. It rains from time to time. Nature is amazing. The universe is amazing. We have proven, scientists have proven with now the telescopes that they use are so powerful. It's been proven that you know that there are other universes. Anyone who can sit quite calmly and say, "Oh, you know, we live and we die, and there's nothing else." I mean, open your eyes, open your ears. By all means, you know, if you don't want to believe that there's something out there, fine. But really, be open minded, for goodness sake. Be open minded to the possibilities. I always think there's this, you know, these two little words that we should all use on a regular basis. Those two little words are, what if? What if? What if she's right? What if he's right? What if they're right? What if? And those two little words open up lots of possibilities. Okay, keep going.
Rhonda says, beautiful story, Rosemary. You are my angel.
Oh, good. Oh dear. the
Meg,
last thing I, the last thing I want is for anyone, please do not put me up on a pedestal, because I know I've had experience of people who put me up on that pedestal. They think I'm Miss Wonderful and all the rest of it. It's hard when you fall off that pedestal. It's painful when you fall off that pedestal. I don't put myself on the pedestal, but other people have done from time to time, and then I disappoint them, and then what? And then they blame me when they put me up there in the first place. So please don't put me on a pedestal.
all right. Vicky says, but you are special, very special. When we come across a being who heals, I think of them as angels.
Well, thank you. I'll take that. Thank you.
Dean says, I remember that good story. So, if you are an angel, warrior soul, am I a devil, retrospective soul? LOL, just kidding.
What can I say? I'm saying nothing. I'm keeping my own counsel. Hmm. Keep going.
All right. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. Marif, Marife, with the slash above it. Angels, I believe, are everywhere. I feel one is with me since I was a little girl. I believe I have some sort of gift. Do you know?
Well, no, I don't know you, so I'm not going to say yes or no, but I do believe we all have the potential and the possibility of a gift of one kind or another, depending what it is. But I think we're all born with a gift. I think we're all born with the gift to heal. So I don't discount, and I think it's wonderful that you know your angels. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Carol says, this story, I love it. And this story hit home in more ways than one.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing it with us. By the way, I indeed do believe in fairies, brownies, and sprites.
yes. Well, I my daughter once saw a fairy. What can I tell you? I don't disbelieve. I don't disbelieve in anything. I think that the world is filled with possibilities and what ifs. Keep going, Chris.
All right. Rhonda says, if not an angel, then an amazing, beautiful human being. You have taught me so much, and I thank you, Rosemary and Grey Eagle.
If we can inspire and if we can affect one person, then we've done our job. I think that's great. So thank you for that.
Maggie says, I talk to my trees and plants, believing they hear my voice.
Oh, I believe that too. Boy, oh boy, I've been talking to my plants this week. And they're doing beautifully, aren't they, Chris? They're doing beautifully.
Really lush.
Yeah.
Marlo says it's okay to be skeptical, but I did think there were terrible reactions under the video without respect.
Terrible reactions under the video. I'm not sure.
So back to the James Randi
Oh,
video.
oh. Well, let me just say this about James Randi, and then we'll, why are we giving him time or space? The video that I did with Larry King, if you want to see it, I'm sure it's up on YouTube. You'll see it. Larry King with James Randi and Rosemary Altea. Just put that in, and you will find it. I'm going to tell you that around the world, not just in America, we sort of imagine, Larry King was sort of in America and he had his studio here, but around the world, because Larry King has worldwide following, that video bounced around over and over again, and we had so much response from people, all good. Of course, there were the James Randi followers who didn't like it very much because I didn't bite. I didn't buy into the James Randi thing, and I showed him up for the person he was. When you offer $1 million, all right, to anybody, prove that this is right or wrong, and here's $1 million. Do you know what it reminds me of? It just suddenly thought what it reminds me of. You know that there are so many people around the world who don't like what's her name? Oh, what's the woman? I have donated $3.5 million to two different charities.
Oh, Amber Heard?
Amber Heard, right? And she's been seen on TV to say it again and again, and she's been pointed out to her, no, you haven't. No, you haven't donated it. a pledge, saying that you will pledge it doesn't mean that you're going to. It means it's still in your bank account. It means, or do you really have it? Did you spend it already? It doesn't mean you've given it. And when you listen to James Randi talking about this $1 million, I actually pointed out to Larry King during the break, well, where is it then? Where is this $1 million? Is it sitting there in the bank somewhere? Is it, is it, where is it? Or is it just a fictional thing that he talks about, but there's no real actual money there? And unfortunately, James Randi was very upset with me because I pointed it out. Is there really $1 million? And I think, James Randi, you're doing what you're accusing me of doing, which is fraud. So anyway, go see it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And he gets very mad with me at times because he accuses me of laughing at him. I'm not laughing at him. I'm just laughing because I'm having fun. Anyway, so was there ever really $1 million? No, there actually wasn't ever $1 million. So all of you who are talking about and being mean about me, and not just me, but people like me, focus on the person that you're believing and ask, should I believe him? Because where was ever the $1 million in the first place? And it was never there. That's it. No more talk of James Randi. We're done. Chris.
Susan says, "Good morning, dear Rosemary. Today is my nephew Connor's 33rd birthday. Yesterday, Paul McCartney turned 80.
Oh,
Today, I'm going skiing. It's such a cool spring here in British Columbia that we
ooh,
still have lots of snow on our Mount Washington.
I've
Now
never
that's kind of crazy.
I've never been to British Columbia. Isn't
I
that
know,
great?
I always wanted to go there. It's supposed to be
Chris,
gorgeous.
you think maybe we might be invited sometime? What do you think?
Wouldn't that be
We
great?
could go and do a workshop there. Just thinking, just suggesting, just making comments. I've never been to British Columbia. I've no idea what it's like. Apparently, snow at this time of year is crazy. Yes.
I've heard it's absolutely stunningly gorgeous.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Now I want to go even more.
Yeah. Andrew says, I did read a book where it's prudent to be skeptical. The guy who wrote the book, I can say, had quite a bit of credibility. Lord Dowding, former airfield marshal, had an account where he stated a spirit tried to make out they were someone else, apparently to impress him, but soon got caught out.
I know about Lord Downing. Fascinating story, right? Fascinating. And I'm glad that he suggests that we should be skeptical. Skeptical but open minded, not skeptical and mean and dogmatic and aggressive and all of that unnecessary stuff. Skeptical but open minded.
Maggie says Rosemary is special in her kindness, her straight shooter attitude, and her deep understanding, ready to help others. And a number of people have agreed with Maggie.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Maggie. You will have heard me say this often because the one thing that Grey Eagle tells us that we need on this earth of ours when he speaks to us, he always says, your world needs gentleness. And if we apply gentleness every day, and sometimes gentleness comes in the form of a, what is it? An iron fist in a velvet glove, because sometimes you do have to be tough with people. And yes, I am a straight talker, and Chris knows more than anybody else. My friends know that, my students know that, but gentleness is the most important thing. And you cannot, if you are going to be gentle, then you cannot be gentle unless you are kind. And so those two things go hand in hand, I think, together. And I think it's the most important thing Gregor has ever said to me is that your world, well, maybe not the most important, but you know what I mean. It's one of the most important things, and he stresses again and again. Whenever we hear him speak, he will say to us, your world needs gentleness. And he is 1,000% right.
Barb says, I talk to Gray Eagle, Rosemary. Does he hear me? What do you think?
Um, okay, I think like myself, I have lots and lots of people who help me with the work that I do. Lots of people here on this earth. I have Chris, for instance. I've got my friends in England. I've got all over the place. We've got lots of people who help, and Grey Eagle likewise has lots of people that uh, he has helped him. I am sure when the word goes out and when he hears his name called, I'm sure someone will tell him of it, whether he actually hears it himself or whether he hears from his helpers. But I'm sure, and I know that he's pleased that you recognize. Uh, I'm trying to listen very carefully what he said. I'm sure I know that he's pleased that you recognize, and so many people recognize him as we are a team. Chris.
Maggie says, every time I hear of Amber Heard, the movie Princess Bride pops in my head where Magic Max's wife yells, liar.
Oh, really? I don't know. Don't think I know that movie, but anyway, interesting.
Marlo says, thanks, Rosemary. You just gave me an insight. I sometimes focus too much on things that don't matter. You give me inspiration to focus well.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. I like that.
All right. I'm waiting for questions. There's been a number of small little comments, but I'm waiting for questions.
Well, as you know, Chris, as soon as the questions dry up and the comments dry up, we're done. So it is Saturday. Um, I have to finish telling Chris the rest of my story. I think she'll be quite surprised, maybe a bit shocked when she hears the story, the rest of the story. And at some point, as I've said, if you know what you have to do is you have to let me know. Do you really want to hear about my personal life? Do you really want to hear about the escapades that I've had over the years? Do you really want to hear about ex-boyfriends? I know that my darling girls in England, um, Chloe, Jessica, and Anna, their Kay's daughters, would sit around, sit by my feet. We would have a party, or it would be Christmas, or it'd be something we'd be celebrating at some point. As it got sort of later on in the evening, they'd sit at my feet and say, tell us a story. And they always loved the stories of my boyfriends. They always loved the stories of my escapades as a girl. They always loved to hear actually the personal stuff, which although I'm happy to tell the personal stuff, I usually stay away from boyfriends and romance and all of that stuff. But I happened to tell Chris this story this morning, and you can't really say that it's a romantic story, Chris. I'm afraid it isn't a romantic story at all, but it could have been if only I'd gone there.
So you're saying if it was a movie, I wouldn't watch it,
Uh,
knowing my
no,
penchant for
mean,
romance.
the time that I was sort of invited to go on someone's boat, um, thinking that it would be good for my mother, who was staying with me at the time, thinking it would be good for my mother to meet this guy who was probably my mother's age, only to find out anyway. See, I'm a tantalizer. I'm a teaser. And what happened on that boat? Could have happened on that boat? Oh, and I could have been dripping in jewels. Oh, wait, I am dripping in jewels. Not really dripping in jewels, but oh, so many opportunities that I've had. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. Any more questions? Anything else? Any other comments?
There's a couple of comments, and then I think we're gonna stop there. So Susan, our dear new friend in British Columbia, we can't say new because we know she's been on for a while, says the important thing I must tell you is my brother that had hip surgery in April is doing well and
Oh,
walking a little.
brilliant.
Yesterday he went out with his walker. He and I believe the healing sent his way by you has really helped.
Oh, we're thrilled. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it.
Everybody so far that has responded says yes, they want to know your stories.
Well, you might. No, I'll have to think about it. Anyway, all right. Well, we can do that at another time.
Well, those can be even on the off the cuff. You could tell one of those stories.
Maybe, maybe.
Chris's comment made me chuckle. Chris C says, Rosemary's escapades? Hell yeah.
Oh, that's that is
uh,
so funny. Yes. Well, there are a lot of them. I see. My mind is racing now. Anyway, all right. Chris, is that it? Are we done?
Maggie has one question. I've been feeling unsettled lately and feel something is coming. Is someone telling me something is to happen? I feel like I'm waiting.
We should all, Maggie, pay attention to our thoughts and our feelings. We should all pay attention to the we call it instinct. We should all pay attention to that. I don't see that it's anything harmful. I think it, might be something coming that you might really like, actually. How about that? Changes are coming, but in a good way. All right,
Starla
that's it.
Tech Starla Tech threw in one last question, Rosemary, just in
Oh,
the nick of
oh,
time.
I keep trying to leave now, don't I? And you won't let me.
Good morning, Rosemary. I'm
Good
here in
morning.
California. Please, can you tell me if there will be a change in my current home situation with my children? It's been a terrible, heartbreaking last 2 years.
Um, I have Grail who puts his hand on my shoulder. Usually, and especially this is like last minute stuff, and I usually don't like to sort of give quick answers. But Grail has his hand on my shoulder, so therefore I need to pay attention. And there are so many. It's easy for me to say that because of what you just said, but so many tears have been cried in your life. Not just in the last 2 years, but in the last few years, and testing your strength. And I feel that your strength has been absolutely tested to its limits. God never gives us anything that we can't handle. Try and hold on to that thought. He never ever gives us anything that we can't handle. I feel that you have to go through this trial for a little bit longer. But I also do see, it's almost as if as I'm looking at this situation, I'm seeing the dawn just beginning to approach, which means that light is on its way. But I do feel it's going to be slower than you'd like, but it's going to be it's on its way. All right, I think we have to end there, Chris. I'm going to suggest that this lovely lady may want to seek out a consultation with someone or needs help of some kind. So if so that would be my advice. Find somebody good, find somebody real who you can talk to about this. All right, Chris, that's it for this morning. Thank you all for joining us. We love you. We love your questions. We love your comments. We love all of that stuff. And I love the fact that you love my stories. We shall be back on Thursday morning, definitely, with our The Spirit World Sees All, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. We should be doing an off the cuff, and Chris and I will maybe talk about this. And you know what? Maybe we'll be doing an off the cuff where I could actually tell you a little personal story. I could tell you about one of my escapades. How about that? You never know. We'll talk about it. So watch for us. Don't be surprised if we turn up unexpectedly. Last week we turned up unexpectedly and I did a little cooking show for you all. And I think it was fun. If you want to know more about us, if you want to find out what we've been up to, if you want to find out our shows, you can do one of two things. Email Rosemary or Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com. It would be Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com or Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com. Or you can go to our website and discover there where you can go the links to YouTube and the links to different places. If you want to look at our wonderful Michael doing his bottom brick exercise, oh, you got to go see that. So go to the website or email us. There are a number of ways to find us. We will be around. If you want to know more or you want to keep in the loop with us, you need to subscribe, which means go on the website and rosemaryaltea.com, and there'll be a subscribe button. Press subscribe and you will be then entitled to a newsletter which goes out every month and a little blurb from me, and you'll get all sorts of information about what's going on. We will not inundate you. We don't send email after email after email. We send one email a month to you with the newsletter. That's pretty much it. All right. So once again, thank you all for watching. Chris, thank you. You've done a great job. I'd like to say thank you. Finally, last but by no means least to Grey Eagle, remember what he says to us all: your world needs gentleness, and it certainly could do with a heavy dose of it. That's my opinion. Until I see you all again, please, please, please have a very blessed rest of the day, everybody, and have a very blessed weekend. Bye-bye.